Good evening and thank you for joining us. A former manager at the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in London has been convicted of assisting a foreign intelligence service in violation of the UK National Security Act. The Chinese embassy in the UK says London has manipulated judicial procedures. The verdict was delivered at the Old Bailey, or the Central Criminal Court in London. The two defendants are 66-year-old Bill Yun, an executive manager of the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in London, and 38-year-old Peter Wai, a former British border officer. The case alleged that between December 2023 and May 2024, the pair assisted Hong Kong intelligence agencies by conducting surveillance on pro-democracy activists residing in the UK in violation of the UK National Security Act. Both were arrested by British police in May 2024 and charged with assisting a foreign intelligence service and foreign interference. Peter Wai faced an additional charge of misconduct in public office. The trial began in early March and both pleaded not guilty. The jury reached a 10-2 majority verdict, finding both men guilty of assisting a foreign intelligence service, a charge that carries a maximum penalty of 14 years in prison. The jury unanimously convicted Peter Wai of misconduct in public office, which carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. On the charge of foreign interference, the jury was unable to reach a verdict. Both defendants were remanded in custody pending sentencing next Friday. Following the verdict, UK Minister of State for Security Dan Jarvis says the defendants' activities infringe upon British sovereignty. The Chinese embassy in the UK issued a statement saying Britain manipulated judicial procedures to support anti-China elements fleeing to the UK.
By arresting and suing Chinese nationals in UK without any factual basis and securing the conviction by abusing law and rigging the judicial proceedings, the UK is blatantly endorsing the anti-China destabilizing forces. Such groundless accusations and smears against China are nothing but a typical political stunt.
In Hong Kong, the government says Hong Kong was never a party to the case and firmly opposes all unfounded accusations made. Executive Council member and Senior Counsel Ronnie Tong says the case is politically motivated.
I think this is a very distressing decision. These non-UK residents are being wanted by another place or another country for violation of criminal law. Now, what has that to do with UK's national security? I can't possibly think that a non-UK resident is key to the national security of the United Kingdom. It just boggles the mind, I think. So the only explanation is that this is a political ploy to irritate China or to irritate Hong Kong government.
He says the government has a duty to assist the defendants to appeal the case. Cathay Pacific Airways will cut fuel surcharges starting May 16th. Flights between Hong Kong and countries from North America, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Southwest Pacific regions will see fuel surcharges trimmed from $1,560 to $1,362. Short-haul flights between Hong Kong and Japan and the mainland will have the levies cut from $389 to $339. The city's flagship carrier reviews the fuel surcharge every 2 weeks to better capture jet fuel price movements. This increased frequency is a temporary measure and will be revisited when the Middle East situation stabilizes. The Hong Kong-based International Organization for Mediation, or IOMED, hosted the Global Mediation Summit in the city today. Inaugural Secretary General of the organization and former Justice Secretary Teresa Chang revealed that a maritime dispute was resolved earlier this month, describing it as a milestone for the mediation body. Samantha Lee reports.
The Global Mediation Summit took place at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Centre today and was attended by Chief Executive John Lee, Secretary for Justice Paul Lam, and Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hong Kong, Cui Jian-chun, together with international mediation experts, policymakers, and leaders from 48 countries and regions. In his opening remarks, the city leader John Lee said the number of signatory states increased from 37 to 41. Amid increasingly volatile global affairs, Lee said today's world is desperately in need of mediation to pursue peace and resolve complex disputes.
The National 15th Five-Year Plan, I'm pleased to note, has expressed support to IOMAT. That ensures that Hong Kong will play a key role in the peaceful resolution of disputes by mediation long down the road. And I can assure you that Hong Kong will continue to build on our partnership with the International Organization for Mediation.
Established last year, the IOMAT provides mediation services for the resolution of international disputes. Inaugural Secretary-General of IOMAT, Teresa Tsang, revealed that a maritime dispute was resolved earlier this month, describing it as a milestone for the mediation organization. Conducted by Hong Kong-based lawyer Rosita Lau, the mediation eventually resulted in a written agreement between parties from China and Singapore.
I am delighted to share with you that a maritime dispute was successfully resolved through mediation administered by IOMAT at our Hong Kong quarters in early May, just a few days ago. The case marks an important milestone. It is the first international maritime dispute involving a charter party chain referred to IOMAT for mediation.
Based on the principle of confidentiality, Teresa Tsang did not disclose the total number of cases handled by the IOMAT. Regarding whether the institution can resolve disputes related to conflicts in the Middle East, Tsang said as long as both parties agree, all countries can utilize the mediation service. The only reservation, which is also a requirement of international law, is that it cannot involve in the interest of a third country, unless it agrees to participate. The International Organization for Mediation is formulating systematic training courses in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and Africa within this year. Samantha Lee, TV News.
The government unveiled the second phase of arrangements for Wang Fuk Court residents to collect their belongings. The first phase ended on Monday. Residents from the 7 fire-ravaged blocks at Wang Fuk Court can return again in batches between May 21st and 29th. 2 to 3 blocks will be open to access every day. 10 floors will be open every time at each block. The first to be granted access will be Wang Yan House, Wang Sun House, and Wang Tai House. Residents can stay at their former homes for 3 hours. The hearing of the Independent Committee's inquiry looking into the deadly blaze at Wang Fuk Court in Tai Po continues. Testifying today were the Deputy Director of Home Affairs and former head of the Housing Bureau's Independent Checking Unit. Timothy Lee has more.
The Independent Committee's public hearing on the Wang Fuk Court fire continued Friday. Taking the stand was Tae-Chi Wang, Deputy Director of the Home Affairs Department. He said the department received a total of 44 complaints related to the owners group at Wang Fuk Court, and his colleagues had tried their best to handle them. In February and July 2024, 5% of the owners of the housing estate requested to hold general meetings, including one in July to remove management committee members. Both were rejected by the then chairman of the owners group. He says the Home Affairs Department plays a coordinating role, but it does not have enforcement powers. Tez says the owners' groups can consider hiring licensed property management companies in future to assist with major maintenance project-related work. And as for building consultants, Tez says it's better that the Development Bureau helps with the arrangement instead of the Home Affairs Bureau. The former head of the Independent Checking Unit of the Housing Bureau, Lau Fu-kwok, also testified. He said the ICU is mainly responsible for ensuring work safety at government-subsidized housing or HOS flats. Lau agreed that the ICU needed to take the initiative to supervise and expose misconduct. In the case of the illegal temporary openings in the stairwells, Lau said because no complaints were received at the time, he was not aware of it, and admitted there are blind spots in the system. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Overseas, the Iran war's shaky ceasefire came under further strain on Friday. The United Arab Emirates responded to a missile and drone attacks hours after the U.S. said it thwarted attacks on 3 Navy ships in the Strait of Hormuz and retaliated against Iranian military facilities. The violence jeopardized the fragile truce between Iran and the U.S., while the two sides considered a deal to end the fighting. Tracy Furness has more.
The temporary ceasefire between the United States and Iran lasted for about a month. Firefights broke out again this week in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claims the US military's attack on an Iranian oil tanker and another ship entering the Strait of Hormuz violated the ceasefire agreement. The Iranian military responded with missiles and drones, striking 3 US destroyers east of the strait. The US ships were damaged and withdrew from the area. A statement said the 3 US destroyers were attacked without provocation, but US President Donald Trump called the attacks a trifle and says the ceasefire is still on.
Mr. President, after these strikes, is the ceasefire with Iran still on?
Yeah, it is. They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran. And they better sign their agreement fast.
Trump said the talks between the US and Iran are going well, but sent mixed messages on its strategy to end the war. The tenuous ceasefire and previous declarations that military operations were over have given way to new threats of bombing if Tehran does not accept a deal that allows resumption of oil and natural gas shipments disrupted by the conflict. The deal also includes Iran not having a nuclear weapon.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It cannot have a nuclear bomb, and it's not going to have.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The World Health Organization and a dozen countries are scrambling to trace a cluster of passengers who have recently disembarked from a Dutch vessel linked to the Hantavirus outbreak. Danny Zhou has details.
Authorities say the outbreak aboard the MV Hondius has so far resulted in 3 deaths. 5 of the 8 infection cases have been confirmed as hantavirus, and the other 3 are suspected. The cruise liner is currently sailing for Spain's Canary Islands off the northwest coast of Africa after anchoring at a port in Cape Verde. The Spanish Health Ministry said its arrival at the islands was expected in 3 to 4 days. The ship owners confirmed that 114 guests boarded on April the 1st in Ushuaia, Argentina. On the 24th of the same month, 29 individuals and the body of a passenger who passed away on board disembarked on the South Atlantic island of St. Helena. They come from 12 countries, including the US, the UK, Canada, the Netherlands, Denmark and Singapore. The UK Health Ministry says 2 British nationals are self-isolating at home after potential exposure to the virus, while South Africa is also tracing 62 contacts of patients. 2 passengers evacuated from the Hondius were taken off to hospitals in the Netherlands. A Dutch news outlet reported a KLM flight attendant has been hospitalized in Amsterdam with a suspected hantavirus infection after she came in contact with one of the sickened cruise ship passengers in Johannesburg, South Africa, who later died. The World Health Organization on Thursday reiterated there's no cause for panic and it is not the start of an epidemic, stepping up its call on those who have contracted the virus to take proper protective measures. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told a press conference that the health agency assesses the public health risk on Canary Islands as low. Spain claims that none of the remaining passengers or crew on the ship presented new overt symptoms. Meanwhile, in the United States, local officials say at least 7 passengers have returned to their home states, including Arizona, California, Georgia, Texas and Virginia, adding those individuals are not symptomatic at the moment.
It's very much, we hope, under control.
The WHO said the Andes strain of hantavirus identified on the infected patients are mostly found in Argentina and Chile. The number of infections surpassed 100 in Argentina in the past year, with 32 reported deaths. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump indicated he's all set to travel to Beijing next Thursday on his first state visit to China in 5 years. There are reports that his administration is inviting CEO from NVIDIA, Apple, Exxon, Boeing, and other big companies to accompany the president on the Beijing trip on May 14th and 15th. Executives from Qualcomm, Blackstone, Citigroup, and Visa are also on the invitation list, sources say. Speaking to reporters in Washington on Thursday, Trump stated his upcoming summit with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, scheduled for next week, is still on, and that the meeting is going to be quite amazing.
Mr. President, is your trip with China still going ahead?
Yeah,
and which companies you
have a very good relationship with President Xi. We've had a great economic time. China's been great for us economically, but not for other presidents. But we've done very well with China. We're going to have a meeting with President Xi. It's going to be, I think, quite amazing. He's been a friend of mine. I've gotten along with him very well over the years. We have had no problem, and we've had no problem with China and Iran. And everybody said, "Oh, China, China." We've had no problem with China.
Pope Leo XIV is celebrating his first anniversary as pontiff. But U.S. President Donald Trump's continuing criticisms and Leo's increasingly bold retorts have complicated the effort and overshadowed Friday's anniversary. This as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with the pontiff at the Vatican on a fence-mending mission. Tracy Furness has more.
Mr. Secretary, good to see you.
Pope Leo spent the eve of the one-year mark as head of the Catholic Church, meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who had come to the Vatican.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio spent about 2.5 hours in the Vatican today. He met first with Pope Leo and then with the Cardinal Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin. The State Department says that they did discuss the situation in the Middle East and the need for a durable peace, but the real visit was to underscore the strong bilateral relationship between the United States and the Holy See. This visit came after weeks of sparring between President Donald Trump and Pope Leo, with Trump criticizing Leo's call for peace and dialogue to end the Iran war. By the end of the audience, it appeared that at least the tensions had come down a little bit.
Pope Leo is said to be mild-mannered at heart, and the friction between the two leaders is said to be a bit out of character for Leo, a reserved 70-year-old Midwestern missionary priest. Last month, Pope Leo told journalists on a plane that he did not want to get into a debate with the president.
I do not look at my role as being politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. And I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states to look for just solutions to problems.
This as Leo will visit Naples and Pompeii Friday, the two southern Italian cities were finalizing details for the visit. In Naples, thousands of fences were cordoning the venues of papal events, Plebiscito Square and the cathedral, and also protecting the route that Pope Leo is expected to take. He will meet with people in Plebiscito Square, where 30,000 are expected to gather. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Back locally, the Water Supplies Department conducted overnight emergency repairs on a burst freshwater main pipe in Tsing Yi. Following the burst freshwater main pipe, the Water Supplies Department dispatched temporary water tanks outside Greenfield Garden and provided water bags to residents. Many families, young and old, were seen bearing pots and containers to collect water. This resident says what the water trucks provided are enough, noting the bags given to those who didn't bring their own containers are hygienic. This resident says having no water is very inconvenient, as she couldn't even wash her face. The Water Supplies Department aimed to restore supply to Greenfield Garden by 10 a.m., but that was pushed back owing to the complexity of the repairs. Work was eventually completed by 11:30 a.m. The incident began at around 8 last night, when a 400mm diameter freshwater pipe on Tsing Yi Heungsi Wui Road suddenly burst. Muddy water gushed into the neighborhood, affecting the water supply of around 10 housing estates in the district. The WSD worked through the night to repair the pipe and reroute the water supply, with most estates seeing service restored starting at 2 a.m. Today is World Red Cross Day, with this year also marking the 70th anniversary of the Hong Kong Red Cross. Timothy Lee has more.
Showcasing world-class first aid skills, members of the Hong Kong Red Cross Youth have long contributed to the spirit of humanitarianism and volunteerism in the city. Every May 8th, the World Red Cross Day is celebrated to commemorate the founding of the organization more than a century ago. Co-founded by Swiss activist Henry Dunant, after witnessing the terrors of war at the Battle of Solferino in 1859, the Red Cross is dedicated to treating wounded soldiers as well as civilians during wartime with complete neutrality. With its presence felt across 196 states worldwide, some members of the local Red Cross youth shared their thoughts on being a part of an international humanitarian group.
The reason I joined the Red Cross when I was in junior form was because there was a scheme at my school that required us to select an extracurricular activity for us to join. Although it was a rather hasty decision, I really don't regret joining the Red Cross. Realized that the Red Cross is way more than just a uniform group.
I was a scout in my primary school, and I would like to continue my uniform group life, organize many various activities like first aid camp and drill competition, and some even surface project design. And I think these activities are very unique, and I would like to learn these skills.
Visitors at the Red Cross venue at Olympian City can interact with this AI mirror, which can generate photos of its users as Red Cross youth. Available to the public until Sunday, the Hong Kong Red Cross hopes the activity can remind residents that humanitarian contributions start at a young age. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.